So good morning. It's great to see a lot of friends. This is a room of doers. I have watched what y'all have done. I'm here today with Shirley Lowry and Julian Lane. And our Theta Joiner was going to join us, but she had a conflict. And we're here to talk to you about an effort we've undertaken and to ask for your support, really to buy tickets and spread the word. I know this room, if we add up everybody y'all know in this room, it explodes throughout the city. So, got just a few minutes, and I think Julian and Shirley will participate more in the Q&A. I'm sure one of the things we all have in common, we're kind of going crazy at how divided we are right now. I mean, pick the example. One of the things we also have in common is that we have all experienced the fullness of this community. Thanks to the port, thanks to the migration of the cigar industry at the turn of the century, we have wonderful diversity that makes us a little bigger than most other southern cities. And we have embraced that, and we have prospered as a result. Last year, Stageworks put on a play written by a Tampa native, Mark Lee, directed masterfully by Carla Hartley at Stageworks, that told a story that many of us never knew. And we're here today to ask you, help us tell this story. A brave young high school fellow named Clarence Ford went down to the Woolworth lunch counter just a few blocks from here and said, I don't just want to buy things, I want to sit at the lunch counter and I want to order a cup of coffee and a piece of pie like everybody else who happens to be white. This is February 29th, 1960, in the wake of Greensboro. And thanks to Reverend A. Leon Lowry, Shirley's husband, who then was president of the NAACP and a man of God who propounded the Old and New Testament, Julian Lane, Julian's grandfather, and he's here today with his mom and dad, Jay and Alan Lane, who stood up and said, we're going to do the right thing, which was called the Tampa technique, went on to lose his re-election without regret, and a lawyer who did what good lawyers do, like Bill and Ron do, mediated, Cody Fowler. These three gentlemen together accomplished a peaceful, successful sit-in that we have come to learn from working with USF historians was one of the most successful, impactful sit-ins in the entire South. One of the things I've learned about this, and some of y'all already knew, is there's a tremendous amount of pride in both the African-American community, the Hispanic community, the white community, throughout the community. We tell folks this is not black history. This is white history. This is brown history. This is Tampa history. This is our heritage. This story is remarkably unifying and inspiring, and Lord knows we need that in these times. So after the election, after the holidays, in the middle of the March, the Straz, as a collaboration with Stageworks, is going to put on this play again. We think this story needs to be told to a broader audience. Whether you've been here for a while or whether you're a newcomer, we need this right now. We have over 40 schools coming to see the play. We have almost 4 times as many kids that want to come see the play from private and public schools as we have seats. There is interest in this play throughout the state. We think there'll be interest in this play throughout the South. This is a story that we should be proud of, we want to embrace, and we want to tell to our children, to our neighbors, to our friends, and our family. And so that's why we're here, to tell you what we're doing, why we're doing it. Let me also tell you that one of the things that's very powerful about this effort is it transcends the political spectrum. Bob Martinez, Dick Greco, Pam Arroyo, Alex Singh, USF Professor Gary Mormino, Cheryl Rodriguez, Stephen Lawson, E.J. Salsinas, retired Judge Perry Little, Sandy McKinnon, Lincoln Tamayo, Principal of Academy Prep. Those are just some of the people that are involved in our effort. This brings us together, and Lord knows we need that. So that's why we're here. And where is Bill? Do we have any time left for Shirley and Julian to speak, or should we wait for Q&A? We do. We do. Shirley, one second. We wait for Q&A. Okay. Julian, one second. All right. So now we stop. Well, we stop and take questions. Let me also thank Bill and Dell again for inviting us. It's great to see you.
producing intimacy. And I don't know if you can speak to that, Carla says no. But it's an extraordinary experience.
Well, I thank you for that. The public performances are March, the first batch, rather, are March 6th through the 9th of 2025. If sales warrant, we'll open a second weekend of public performances, but we already have, as Jim asserted, 8 performances for teenagers, high school age children in this area, which I think is a really important thing to be doing.
So Carla's directing again. A lot of us tried. Brought my grandfather to life. For me, I think the Lanes would say the same thing about their family. Same actors, almost entirely.
Yes.
Straz, this is a collaboration of Straz and Stageworks. As we sell more tickets, there will be extra performances added. We're hopeful that we get up somewhere between 15 and 20 performances if we don't polish off Carla and the actors.
Just for the record, I'm the producer and assistant director of the theater. A gentleman named Christopher Jackson, along with Andrews and Mosley, directed it by itself. Just for, I don't want to take stolen valor.
Let me also add that WEDU and Joyce will be central to this. Is going to record the play and produce a 1-hour documentary that will be seen, I think, eventually by millions of people. Back to your point, Candy. Paul Grove, the station manager, has already told us their interest in other PBS affiliates around Florida in seeing this. I mentioned to Angela and Kierwood Day School in Pinellas County. By the way, Pinellas superintendent told us he would send 6,000 kids. Yes. If we had room, which we don't. We're going to work with the schools, private and public, to produce education materials that can be used in the classroom.
Are you thinking of maybe adding something at the end of the performances this year to try to discourage racism and anti-immigrant things like Springfield, Ohio, and the lies being spread about nations in Springfield, Ohio, in order to try to put an end to racism, which persists every day?
So, Ron, have you seen the play? No. Okay. And Julie and Yoni jump in. The point of this play is that 3 people sit in a room and look at each other. And they talk to each other, not past each other. With respect, with affection. That's the problem. And it'll take you wherever you want to go. This is about equality. This is the fact that we're all God's children. We have reached out to the faith community. We consider them a heavily component of this. The Catholic Church was very active in social justice issues. St. Peter Claver, I think, was burned down because nuns were teaching young black men and girls and boys many, many years ago. We have a wonderful history, Ron, because of the unique nature of our community, of talking to each other and working together. The documentary has 3 legs to the stool. One is excerpts from the play. The second is the story behind the story. And I'll commend you all, maybe Bill will let us share this through your network. Professor Stephen Lawson wrote a wonderful article about the story behind the story that needs to be told. Julie, one of the things we have in common, all 4 of our families were getting death threats when this was happening. And it just propelled them to stand up even stronger and better. And then the third leg of the stool, Ron, is where do we go from here? And that's what you're talking about. This is intended to stimulate a conversation and to do what Julie and Wayne did. It's the Tampa technique. And it's not just something for Tampa, it should be a model for the country.
I saw the first reading. Wendy Lee is a friend of mine, formerly at the Intelligence Observatory, and I got to see the first reading and then to see the play afterwards, and then Athena and others spoke afterwards about it. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, but came here in '84. It is so moving and so wonderful. This is not a question, you're going to go. You really have to see this, you have to become involved with it. I'm going to try and get Emily involved with it. It's a wonderful portrayal of what's happening. And by wonderful, I mean it's eye-opening, tears flow, and it's truly worth your time and energy.
My question is, where did Dr. Stephen, I didn't catch the last name, where did he write?
Professor Stephen Lawson was teaching at USF. He interviewed Mayor Lane, he interviewed Reverend Lowry, he interviewed my grandfather, Cody Fowler. He interviewed a lot of the participants. He wrote a book published by the University of Kentucky Press. We have the book, not with us. And what I will send to you, and we've been sending to folks, is a chapter on race relations in Tampa and all the remarkable things we did, not just the sit-in, but the sit-in kicked a lot of it off. This is the story behind the story that WED will help us tell. To integrate lots of things here that were long overdue, while the rest of the South was fighting and having a hard time. So that's the book, and we'll share the chapter with you. The title of the book, Shirley, is... Yes.
The title of the book is called Crossroads, I believe, to Civil Rights by Stephen Lawson. When you look it up, look up Crossroads by Stephen Lawson. And I believe that it will get you to the book. Okay, so.
We would love to send you something that you could share, if there's a way to do that, Bill. Okay, we'll send you the chapter. We'll send you a little flyer you can share about the play with other people. Carla has convinced us word of mouth is key here. I mean, that's how we still work, and that's why y'all are doing this group. And so it's helping us spread the word so we can get additional performances, additional attention. And we want everybody to see this play. Democrat, Republican, Independent, biggest growing group, liberal, conservative, black, white, brown, everybody. This is about a principle.
Do you have any insight as to what motivated your grandfather?
See, this is a great question that Julie and I were talking about yesterday. I think you have to start with the mayor, because he sacrificed all. So I'll talk about my grandfather, and then not sure you're going to have to talk. I don't know. He wrote an autobiography. I found out he actually wrote a letter to President Carter suggesting they create a national biracial commission because he was co-chair of the Leroy Collins Biracial Commission and co-chair with the biracial commission that Julian Lane created. So this was actually trying to export itself nationally. I just think he believed we're all God's children, and we are. And I think he was at the pinnacle of his career with our white law firm, and he just said, we're going to stand up. And when you read this chapter, he basically says to the merchant community, look, you're going to lose business. He's trying to buy a cup of coffee and a piece of pie, and he'll take his money when he wants to buy stuff to leave. And Reverend Lowry, and the reason I think the faith community is so integral to this, I mean, he is pounding the hell out of the Old and New Testament as part of this. But I think it is, folks say there aren't enough women in this, and that's true, but different times now. It's the character of the person. And I think that's the story behind the story, right? Julian?
And Ron, back to your question, I think there's a couple different things to consider for this. And one is, it shows a group of folks coming together and solving the problem. And, the question of, why did they do it? My dad and I were talking about this just the other day. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this better? My dad and I were talking about this the other day, and there's kind of two components I think my grandfather really felt passionate about, and one was his faith. And he, he's on actually during the interview here, and he says it was the Christian thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And the other part of it was when he was in World War II, he was an officer assigned to the African American group in Camp Livingston in Louisiana. And so they did artillery. And so he was training soldiers, African American soldiers, for 2 years and sending them out to war and sending them over to Europe. And when he came back, when he was there, just in his heart, he said, I can't send these folks to war and then not allow them to drink up the water fountain. And so I think that was really the two main factors in his life, his faith, and then what he did and what he felt he owed to the soldiers that he trained in World War II.
Laurie. I am the second Mrs. Laurie, so I'm not the one being shot at in the
play, so that's good. So I believe I agree with Julian and Jim about why the play was made and why my husband and the other fellows joined. I believe it's for the betterment of everyone. It is about faith. It's about the greater good. It's about helping mankind. It's about moving forward in those times. It was time to make a difference. So they all were part of especially the Attorney Fowler was a part of the biracial committee. And that was a group of people that were black and white, and they got together and said, hey, we need to do something. And so they did it in a way that was nonviolent. It was in a way that people could negotiate. And God knows my husband could negotiate, and I'm sure your attorney grandfather was a good negotiator as well. And so I just believe these men got together and said, let's do this. It's the right thing to do. It's just that simple. It was the right thing to do. Let's get together. How are we going to move forward in this city as a group of people? And the other part was, how are we going to show young people how to go about and creating a positive solution? And so that's what I think Dr. Adrian Laurie was about, creating a positive solution as well as working together.
You had mentioned the value of word of mouth to get the word out. I wondered if any of the three of you or all of you can speak to the role of the media during that time, particularly the Tampa Tribune, the Florida Sentinel Bulletin, La Gazzetta. It was pretty active media scene, I believe.
So I can address that. It was actually pretty fascinating what they did, and so there's a supervision committee, and they had this plan in place on how to start integrating the schools, the public facilities, the pools, the beaches, the counters, things like that. And so they actually had a meeting with the heads of the local media, Tribune, the other slots, and they said, this is our plan. This is what we're going to do. Please don't publish this. We want this to happen, and then once it happens, 3-4 weeks later, then we want you to put it out there. Because they said, hey, this Friday coming up, we're going to start integrating lunch counters. This is there'll be protests, there'll be people coming in. They wanted it to happen and show that there was no problems, there was no conflict. And so I don't think you can get that done today, right? Maybe, right? But you couldn't get the media to be quiet about it. Was my point.
You could, it depends on the media.
Sure. So they ended up having this meeting in the Tribune. Yeah, we'll be quiet about it. And so 3-4 weeks went by, and no issues, no problems, and then they released it, and the Tribune had put out, hey, this has been going on, no issue with that. So it's a pretty special moment that they were able to kind of, again, everybody coming together and deciding this is something that that's for the greater good of Tampa.
Two additional points. When you go back to the clips which we're pulling up, the Tampa Tribune, which was pretty establishment-oriented back then, and the Florida Sentinel Bulletin, which was not, they're pretty much saying the same thing, which is really remarkable in that particular time. The research we've done with these professors suggests that one of the most successful cities behind Greensboro was Nashville, because Nashville, they used the media. And it also produced leaders like my former colleague, John Lewis, whose foundation was going to, I think, help us with this. In Tampa, it was a different story. And it's one of the reasons the story needs to be told. I mean, a lot of people didn't know the story. A lot of people didn't know that the Klan tried to assassinate Reverend Lowry and his wife over there behind Buell. I didn't know that. So this story really is not that well known, and the play masterfully brings the story back to life.
Gigi Jenner. Hello. One of the reasons I'm here is because I worked on this play as well. I was brought in, Carla brought me in to work with Mark on the crafting of the play. Mark had already written it, there had already been a reading, and Mark had done such extensive research and put so much into it that we had to pare it down a bit so that it could work theatrically. But the point that I want to make, and Jim, you just made it, but I'll add to it. And the point is that I was amazed. I mean, I was a young kid at the time here in Tampa when this was going people who came before us who did fabulous things to help this city be what it is becoming. So, thank you.
I want to go back to what Ron said. Ron, this is a very forward-thinking what we're doing here. There is lots of conflict. We sit here and think, why was this such a big deal? In 1960, this was a really big deal. We got tough issues in front of us. It didn't make a difference what side you were on the issue. But this is the model about how we work together. And this is personal, and it's local, and it's our story.
I forgot to mention that I live across the street from historic St. Paul A&E, which is a local landmark, where the students and organizers and the NAACP met before they would walk to the cities. And I hope in the run-up to the play that, you know, the various programs and media attention that you create, that you consider bringing people to the church. Monday through Friday, you can just buzz the real estate office, which is located in this church. The church is now a life center, a community center, and you can go in there and tour it Monday through Friday. You can just walk in, and they'll let you go through the building and the sanctuary upstairs. And also, I just wanted to suggest that in the run-up that you include the woman who was behind the Woolworth historical marker on Franklin Street, and she's also a media personality in Orlando, so that's another market.
What's her name?
Tammy Fields
Bailey.
She used to be here. She erected the Woolworth marker, I believe, as a dissertation or master's. You know, she did it for USF.
Thank you for that, and we will use your advice.
I share a town with thanks for it. And I remember him mentioning the boot camp at Middleton, where he took about 25 students, as I recall, there was at least 2 white women involved, including students that ever helped Gordon Davis. And basically, boot camp, Reverend Lowry so brilliantly took them, and he basically had fellow actors go in and abuse them verbally, spit on them, and otherwise find out whether or not they had what I thought was the most telling scene in all of Gandhi, which is when in South Africa, Gandhi took those blows with those clubs, and every time a club would hit Gandhi in South Africa, everyone inside found some new resolve on the subject. I want to admire, thank you, Shirley, Reverend Lowry's boot camp, to get those young people to sit there, and the first 2 or 3 times in boot camp, they reacted, and when, and then the 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th time watching each other, they learned the magnificent essence of the only successful nonviolence. That's why that's a national model. They call it the Tampa technique, and it is a national model in relationships likened to that boot camp of how to deal with that subject.
Well, thank you, and that was his character. It was about nonviolence, and most of you may know this. One of his students was Dr. Martin Luther King at Morehouse, and of course, he taught what? Nonviolence, correct? So his professor, of course, Dr. Adrian Lowry, I think that was the big deal back then as well. Teaching young people that we can solve a problem without being, number one, angry, fighting back, but using techniques to kind of, come together. So thank you for telling me that story.
One of my favorite lines in the play is, and if you knew Reverend Lowry, he was a very strong person, but also very modest. He's asked if he taught Dr. King at Morehouse, and he said, I did. And they said, what do you think of him? And he said he was a better student after I taught him. True story.
Not grow up here, but I do want to give commendation to our local historians like Gloria Jean and the others. I know this story because I've been on some of the history walks that have been offered in our city. And I wonder if, in conjunction with the tickets that are sold at the Strads, it's only a few blocks, and perhaps we could organize, what do you think about organizing either before performance or after to do the walk and to see some of these locations in person? city.
So one of the people whose advisors from the start is Judy's, and her advice was to reach out to institutions, and I consider y'all an institution, that's the sum of your parts, and create additional life outside this. We are painfully focused, and again, we ask for your help, in selling tickets so we can add performances and build interest. But apart from that, Christina, we've talked to the History Center about this. We've talked to other institutions, USF, the University of Tampa, and there are lots of things that can be done with this because the Lane family is pulling up papers that nobody's ever seen. Shirley's got a few sermons from Reverend Lowry, and there's a life here that we can share in lots of ways, whether it's the walk or the History Center or others that y'all may think of and can help us with. Many of y'all are active in this institution.
So grateful that you all are here today. I cannot wait to see the play. I'm hearing such great things about it. And I was blessed to know your grandfather, Tony Fowler, when I first moved to Tampa back in 1968, and the impact that he's had in our community. I've said before that because I'm white, because of my age, 80, and because I grew up in a very racist part of Mississippi, I think sometimes I may hear comments from people, especially older people, that don't think, that may think I'm on the same page they are on racism. And I am just grateful that we'll have the opportunity to see this. I do think we still have racism. I'm sure others could speak to that. And we need to pray about it. I was racist myself when I moved to Tampa, and thankfully God changed my heart when I was in my early 30s, and I could not be more grateful. And I just maybe am asking you to speak a little bit about racism and what you see, and also in what ways can we help promote and get the word out. I think you've already mentioned it about the play. Thank you.
So, my wife used to live in Boston, and she said if you jaywalk, you establish eye contact with the driver first. That's the problem in Congress, by the way. People don't look each other in the eye. It's not personal. That's why this worked. It's because when you see the play, 3 people sit in a room, and Reverend Lowry looks at this well-intended young manager, similar background to what you described, and says, "Do you think you're better than me?" And you can't look somebody in the eye and say that. You can think that, you can say it, you can post it on Facebook or something. And so that's the power of this. And it's also the trust and the respect and then getting to know each other. This is intense play. And it's Mayor Lane getting the police to do the right thing. The police might think, you think we're actually escorting some of the protesters. So I think that is the crucible here, and we take it wherever we need to go. And this isn't just about race, it's about equality, it's about a principle, and it transcends everything, and we got lots of work to do after November. And we want to see a clearly election. With all due respect to Councilman Carlson, we're fighting politicians are the last people we fight. We have to lead on this, but we'll fight everybody.
John Masters, I'm from North Carolina. I know it's hard to tell from Brooklyn Escats. I worked for the city of Greensboro, North Carolina back in the 80s, and City Hall was only about a block from the Woolworths. I've sat on the stools that are now in the Smithsonian out of that Woolworths, so I'm excited to see this. It's not a question, as you know, I'm excited to see this play.
Thanks for speaking. Love that Southern accent. My family's from Alabama. Lost the accent. We've reached out to the Greensboro Museum. We've reached out to the Atlanta Museum. We've reached out to the Carter Center. There are interests in other parts of the South, including Nashville, in this. So please help us spread the word. We're going to try to publish some information about the Tampa technique outside the state of Florida.
Sounds terribly important. I would just remind you, though, that by 1969 and 1970, it took federal court orders from Judge Princeton to integrate the local schools here. And that did not go smoothly here or in Jacksonville, where I was with the federal court. And it's an ongoing process. It continues. There's one event coming up on October 13th at the Tampa Museum about Athens and American democracy in connection with the show that opens that day of 19th century photographs of Athens. There will be a half-day seminar with out-of-state speakers and professors locally speaking about the differences between Athenian democracy and what we have today and the challenges that we're meeting today. One further thing, the Lorraine Collins papers, and I think others, are at the Special Collections Department at the University of South Florida, where they've been archived. Tremendous resource.
Joyce Scott from WEDU. I moved here from Cleveland 40 years ago. And at the time when I was going to school in the North, we did not talk history about the South. So after retiring from Tampa, I go to WEDU. And one of the first experiences that I had with Tampa and Florida was the rise and fall of Jim Crow. And I had the privilege of getting a small grant in partnership with the Tribune at that time, an NIE program. And I had the privilege of driving Mr. Robert Saunders, Mary Alice Dorset, and Bob Sanders, and a couple of others from NAACP Times Collins. And I knew that it would be difficult for me to go and get them to drive to Lakeland, to Florida Southern. So I put them in a limousine, and it rained that day. It took me 2 hours for us to get over there. And to hear their personal story firsthand, I was like, oh my God, that kind of. The second opportunity was I had met many people from the community, and I'd heard about Central Avenue. And I said, what's this Central Avenue? So through that, we did a documentary on Central Avenue. And it ended up being, we still hear the back history of that business district. I got 2 stories. Holland and Knight actually underwrote that for us, and that's actually when we did Remember and Lowry documentary, which is when I met Shirley, shortly after Dr. Lowry had passed away. So, Extraordinary Grace. Then there came the March on Washington. I did not get the national grant from PBS, but my brain said, wait a minute, if there were 250,000 people who went to Washington, surely I can find 10 here in Tampa Bay. I found 15. And many of them included all of those who actually were in the sit-ins and the civil rights, the class that they taught them to be strong and how they resisted. They were part of the youth organization. And I am so grateful. I think it was one of them. And I am so grateful that you all are telling me back of the story, of the real story, because while we knew it, nobody really brought out the full truth. And I'm just looking forward to WEDU's involvement, the community engagement, you bring it to light. And I just see it as a way for us to be able to connect the community with truth and to say, here's how we as a community can be an example of where we have come, but yet how we have evolved as a city. I'm so proud to have been here for 40 years and to have been able to experience the diversity of this community and to have this project finally come forward to say, here's the, what we used to say, here's the rest of the story. And you guys, with this initiative, I'm just proud to be proud of it and look forward to seeing it and spreading the word and getting more of the students in, because if we don't tell our story, nobody else is going to tell our story. And that's what I've learned through WPBS, is that we're all storytellers. And if we can continue to tell that story as we collect together, I'll be able to use some of what you know. Yeah, I do that. So thank you. Thank you for bringing it to life. And continue.
I also grew up near Greensboro, and you mentioned 2 or 3 different museums. Are we going to have a Tampa Technique lunch counter replication with the Smithsonian one in the new Gwen Myers African American History on North Road that's underway? We're going to have an adequate Tampa Technique, and we're going to have the Woolworth weeks, we're gonna have those Woolworth counter kind of replicas in the new Wayne Myers African American History Museum on North Road.
So, our theme, who could not be with us this morning, is talking to the commissioner. And this is another example of how we want to expand this just beyond the performance. But I will also tell you, and you can help with this, Ron, we reached out to Carolyn Wilson, who owns the building, and I am told the lunch counter is still in there. I don't know that, but I've been told that, and I've been told Carolyn has interest in this. So if you can help us get her attention, we asked the mayor, and she said she would help too, but we may ask Carolyn if she would open it up for this. And, you know, Clarence Forbes was there for the ceremony, his name's on a historical marker outside there. It would be a wonderful center of gravity to kick this off.
And the Tampa History Center has an adjunct at the St. James in the middle of Encore, which is the second museum opportunity there. Thank you.
I just wanted to let everybody know, I posted the link to the Strike Center place where you can buy tickets to this. It's on Café Tampa on Twitter and Facebook, so if you're not following those already, please do that. If you have anything to add, any other stories or other information, you might just add it underneath there. But if the speakers have anything you want me to post, I can post that up there as well. The other thing, Gloria Jean, we mentioned this earlier, Christina mentioned, but she gave me a tour of this area downtown last week, and I was blown away. Every block has an incredible history, so thank you for doing it. And don't forget, Café Tampa is open to everybody, so the way we continue the fight is to make sure everybody works together. The faster we make connections in the community, the faster we solve these issues going forward. One quick question. Mark Lee, the writer, he's a professor and he also teaches people how to write. What does this, anybody know what does this say about the status of writing screenplays or movies or plays in the Tampa area?
Well, I think WU will partly elevate the fact this is a native, who, by the way, his intention was to write about a positive chapter in history. So he went out and researched, and this is what he came up with. And one of the things we're going to feature working with Ron Stage, these are local actors, and hopefully this makes launch them on to bigger and better things. I just want to also go back to what Rosemary asked. The way y'all can help us this morning, because you are leaders. You know, there's like 100 to 1,000 people behind each of you, because I know what y'all have done and what you're capable of doing. Please help us spread the word, Rosemary. We will get Bill the information you need, including the chapter that's been asked about, the story behind the story. You'll notice we did not ask you for any money this morning. That we're not asking you for that. We're working on that, but we're not asking you for that. We're asking you to spread the word and buy tickets. There are group discounts. There are discounts for students. We work very hard to raise the money, so it only costs $10 for a student group to go. There are discounts for veterans. There are discounts for seniors.
Seniors, educators.
So the ticket price is affordable, we believe. But that's the way you can help us this morning, is by spreading the word.
83 Degrees Media about the play. One way to spread the word, get the word out, is share that story.
Bill posted that story, and we'll make sure you have it. It is a wonderful story written by one of Diane's reporters who is remarkably knowledgeable about the history of the community. And we're going to have video clips. We'll be looking for influencers in January after the holidays, after the election, to get the word out. But the key really is now to drive the number of performances.
I want to thank people you see before you for their support of the play and what we're doing at Stageworks. Like several of you, it sounds like I'm a third generation native of Tampa. My grandfather owned a business at 34 the Lake. And I remember as a kid being playing in what was the factory and seeing I was like, why are there so many bathrooms? And I walked up to a set of restrooms and I could see raised letters underneath several layers of paint and varnish, but raised letters that said that colored. You could feel it underneath all of this. And I often think that that's a really interesting analogy for racism in the United States. So what we were looking for as well is ways to really look at the history of Tampa and celebrate it. So we're doing this piece, we're working on a play about the Great Snow Show of 1958. But so we at Stageworks are really, really committed to our community. breakdancing, both with the artists in the community and all of you folks and our patrons. So I want to thank you for the work that you've done to help bring this to fruition.
I just want to add one thing to what Bill said. Everyone in the community is welcome to attend Café in Tampa. We also have a scholarship program, so if you know someone who would like to come, community leader, student, anyone in the Tampa Bay area, we have a scholarship program. So speak to anybody on the board of Café in Tampa, and we can get them in on our scholarship program. We want participation from everybody in the community. Again, thank you on behalf of Café in Tampa.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. Thanks to the stakeholders who started this. But the story behind the story is 2 years ago after the play, this man asked me for a meeting. It took one spark to say, Shirley, we saw this play, we need to bring it back. That's why this play is coming. Strads and stage works has teamed together to put this play on again. But it was a cup of coffee at Oxford Exchange where there was no money was involved, but a conversation between two people who had relatives that made a difference in the community. That's how it started. And this man can really get some money. He can really this guy right here. So Jim, I want to personally thank you for really doing an awesome, excellent job and helping us bring this play back again. So thank you.
Thank you all. We'll see you all next